There is a reason the eagle soars alone, not because it is afraid, not because it is arrogant, but because altitude demands isolation. Some of you watching this feel like you're too different to belong, too deep to be understood, too awake to fit in. You're not antisocial, you're spiritually assigned. And that ache inside you, that's not loneliness. It's legacy forming in silence. You don't walk with the crowd because you were never built for average. You're not overlooked. You're hidden. You're not rejected. You're protected. If you've ever asked yourself why you feel like the outsider in every room, why your spirit feels heavier in a room full of chatter, or why silence feels more holy than applause, this message is for you. By the end of this speech, you'll know why you walk alone, why certain people couldn't stay, and why you must not shrink to be seen. Because being chosen means being set apart, not cast aside. Stay with me. There is something unmistakably different about those who carry the mark of the anointing. You can't always put it into words, but when they walk into a room, the atmosphere shifts. It's not charisma, it's not confidence, it's not charm, it's a weight, a quiet gravity that comes from being chosen, called, and consecrated for something greater than applause, greater than attention, greater than being liked. And because of that, they cannot be everywhere. They cannot be around everyone. They are not designed for mass consumption. They are not built to blend. Their soul was never wired to walk shoulder to shoulder with the average. There is a holiness about their path, a sacredness about their silence, a divine rhythm about their journey that does not fit inside crowded rooms or noisy circles. Anointed ones are never overcrowded, not because they are better, but because their blueprint is different. Some people don't understand this and take it personally. They mistake your distance for arrogance, your solitude for judgment, your silence for rejection. But what they don't realize is that there is a cost to carrying an anointing. You do not get to have what everyone else has and still hear God with clarity. You do not get to be everywhere with everyone and still guard your oil. You do not get to mingle aimlessly and still protect the sacred fire within you. Because your spirit is tuned to a frequency others don't hear. And the more voices you allow in your atmosphere, the harder it is to hear the whisper of destiny. Crowds bring confusion, chaos, compromise, and for someone with oil on their name, compromise is too expensive. There is no anointing without separation. Every chosen vessel in the sacred texts, every prophet, every healer, every builder of kingdoms, they were all pulled aside before they were pushed forward. Before the anointing is revealed publicly, it must be protected privately. This is why you felt that sting of disconnection, that unexplained drifting from friends you once loved deeply, that spiritual ache when you're in rooms that feel full of people but empty of purpose, that tiredness that comes not from physical exhaustion but from the emotional labor of pretending to fit in places that are not aligned with your calling. That ache is not accidental. It is divine separation. You were pulled back because something holy was being stirred inside you, something set apart. And not everyone can handle the ingredients of your becoming. Not everyone can be trusted around your oil. You see, the anointing on your life makes people uncomfortable, especially those who benefit from your silence, your shrinking, your playing small. But you are not here to make everyone comfortable. You are here to move in purpose. And purpose does not always come with company. Sometimes it comes with long nights, silent prayers, unanswered questions, and the kind of solitude that humbles you to your bones. That is the breaking that bursts the oil. And here's the truth. When you are truly anointed, you will be lonely before you are legendary. You will be misunderstood before you are honored. You will be overlooked before you are embraced. That is the pattern. That is the preparation. Because if your spirit is not fortified in private, the weight of public assignment will crush you. So God keeps you hidden, not because you are not ready to be seen, but because he is not ready to see you wounded. He loves you too much to let your name rise before your character is rooted. He protects your oil before he allows others to partake in your overflow. That is not punishment. That is preparation. The cocoon may feel like a prison, but it is actually protection. You are being formed. And let's be honest, most people want your presence, but not your process. They want the glow without understanding the grind. They want the overflow without respecting the oil. They love the fruit, but they could never endure the pressing. And so the anointed ones must be careful. They cannot afford to let just anyone handle their sacred. They cannot afford to expose their process to public opinion. Because when God anoints you, your life becomes consecrated. Everything you do carries spiritual weight. Even your silence speaks. Even your presence convicts. That is why your circle must be intentional, small, sanctified. Not because you are better, but because what you carry is bigger. You are not for the masses, you are for the moment. And when that moment comes, your voice will echo through generations. But until then, you must remain hidden, cultivated, kept. There is glory in the shadows. There is strength in the silence. There is growth in the garden of obscurity. So don't fight the isolation. Don't mourn the friendships that faded. Don't chase the rooms that no longer fit. You were never called to fit. You were called to transform. And transformation doesn't happen in crowds. It happens in caves, in quiet spaces where your soul meets the sacred, where your ego dies and your essence rises. Let them go. Let the crowd keep dancing to the noise. You have a different song in your spirit, a sound that can only be released through obedience, a melody that requires stillness to mature. This is not a season for popularity. This is a season for pruning, for preparing, for protecting the anointing that's been placed on your life since before your birth. So yes, the anointed are never overcrowded, because crowds are often carriers of distraction, and distraction is the enemy of destiny. You were not designed to be everywhere. You were designed to be effective, and effectiveness often comes with isolation. Ask any prophet, any healer, any voice of truth. Their life was never crowded. It was consecrated, and so is yours. Stay the course. Protect your oil, honor your solitude, and never forget the weight of what you carry is the reason for your separation. You were not rejected. You were reserved. You were not abandoned. You were appointed. You were not forgotten. You were foretold. The anointing costs too much to be handled by many, and so the chosen must walk light, because what they carry is heavy. There are truths that the ears may never hear, but the soul always knows. There are secrets that lips never speak, yet the spirit feels them before words can shape. When you are chosen, when the divine has kissed your brow and entrusted you with a calling, your sensitivity is not weakness, it is your compass. It is how you navigate through a world too busy pretending to be seen while refusing to feel. The chosen do not need to hear a person speak to know what they carry. They do not need proof. They do not need evidence. They sense, they feel, they absorb the vibration of a room before they even sit down, and they know, before a sentence is spoken, who came in truth and who came masked in intention. This isn't paranoia. This isn't overthinking. This is discernment, refined in silence, sharpened in solitude, activated through pain, betrayal, loss, and awakening. Vibrations don't lie. Smiles can lie. Words can deceive. Accolades can cover. Intentions can hide. But energy tells on everything. The soul has no filter. And when you are chosen, your body becomes an antenna. You walk into a space and suddenly you feel heavy. You don't know why, but your chest tightens. Your spirit leans back. You smile, but inside something tightens and says, Don't stay long. That is not fear. That is wisdom. That is the internal alarm of a soul that refuses to be polluted. That is God whispering, "This room is too loud for your peace." And sometimes the ones you feel it from most are the ones closest to you, because the most dangerous vibrations are not from enemies. They are from those who pretend to love you but secretly compete, from those who smile in your face but choke on your growth, from those who say all the right things, but their spirit flinches every time you rise. The chosen don't just hear what is said, they feel what is unsaid. This is the burden of carrying sacred energy in a world addicted to pretending. You walk in love, but you see the envy. You lead with peace, but you feel the resentment. You give grace, but you sense the malice riding behind the compliments, and no one else may see it, but you do. Because vibrations don't lie. There is a loneliness that comes with being sensitive to energy. You don't wish to be this way, it just is. You don't want to read the room like an open book, but you do. You don't want to feel every shift in energy, every flicker of attitude, every hidden jab behind the smile, but your spirit won't let you ignore it, so you grow quiet. You grow selective, not out of pride, but preservation. You stop explaining your silence to people who don't respect your spirit. You stop second-guessing the signals your soul picks up. You stop shrinking just to keep the atmosphere light, because when you carry light, it disrupts anything built on shadows. And it is not your job to dim that light so others can stay comfortable in their disguise. You were not chosen to be tolerated. You were chosen to be felt. That's why people can't forget you, even if they try. That's why your presence stays with them long after you leave. It's not what you said, it's what you carried. You carried truth, you carried clarity, you carried alignment, you carried a mirror, and some people hate mirrors because it shows them their masks. So don't be surprised when people distance themselves without warning. Don't be shocked when someone turns cold and you can't find the reason. Don't internalize the switch in energy. Just accept what your spirit already told you long ago. Everyone cannot withstand the vibration of the chosen, not because the chosen are superior, but because their spirit is honest. And honest energy confronts whatever is fake. The chosen cannot fake laugh, cannot fake a line, cannot fake loyalty. Their spirit rejects all things counterfeit. It's not personal, it's spiritual. That's why the chosen grow tired in shallow spaces. That's why gossip exhausts them. That's why small talk drains them. That's why fake concern makes their skin crawl. It's not snobbery. It's because their soul has matured beyond surface level interaction. They crave depth, truth, realness, stillness. They find more peace in solitude than in noisy company. They find more joy in a quiet walk than a crowded room. They would rather sit in silence with someone who is real than be surrounded by 100 people who are wearing spiritual disguises. Because their joy is not fed by attention. It is fed by alignment. This gift, this sensitivity, was not something they asked for. It was something they survived into. Every betrayal fine-tuned it. Every heartbreak sharpened it. Every disappointment refined it. Now, their discernment is a sacred weapon, and their peace is their shield. So when they feel that shift in energy, they don't argue. They don't fight to stay. They don't beg for closeness. They honor the signal and exit quietly. They let people keep their comfort. They let spirits reveal themselves. They don't need closure. They already sense the conclusion before the conversation ever ended. Vibrations don't lie. And when you're chosen, you no longer beg for clarity that your spirit already whispered. The truth is, the chosen are always one conversation away from disappearing. Not because they are unstable, but because they are unwilling to stay where they are no longer celebrated. They don't hold on to misaligned people out of fear. They don't trade their peace for proximity. They don't chase energy that drains. They move with reverence for themselves and for what they carry when they feel that shift in tone, that hesitance, that subtle dismissal, that lack of joy when they enter, that hidden contempt. They don't confront, they detach. And in that detachment, they preserve the sacred. Because what they carry is not for everyone. Their vibration is not universal. Some people are not offended by what you said. They're offended by how your spirit feels. And that is not your fault. That is the price of alignment. That is the cost of authenticity. You will not be for everyone, but you will be exactly what the right ones have prayed for. So trust the vibration. Trust the shift. Trust what you feel even when it doesn't make sense, even when the words don't match the energy, even when the smile feels hollow, even when the room claps but your spirit cringes. Trust that. That is not fear. That is not judgment. That is your gift. And your gift will always lead you to truth, because no matter what masks are worn, no matter how dressed up the performance, vibrations don't lie. There are roads carved into the landscape of destiny that were never meant for a crowd, paths so narrow, so sacred, so tailor-made that even a whisper from the wrong voice can throw the traveler off course. When you are chosen, your path will not look like the others. It cannot. Because what you carry is too weighty, too holy, too precise to share with just anybody. From the moment you were marked before your first breath, the journey ahead of you was designed with solitude in its foundation. Not loneliness, not abandonment, but divine separation. The world may tell you that success is measured by how many walk with you, how many cheer for you, how many clap when your name is called. But the soul knows different. The soul knows there are some mountains you must climb barefoot and alone, and no one teaches you that. No one prepares you for the quiet nights when no one checks on you. No one tells you that being called means being cut off, cut away, cut out of the comfort you once knew. Because when you are chosen, you cannot move like the rest. You cannot lean on others the way you used to. You cannot wait for someone to validate a vision only you were given. There is no map when you are called, only the voice within. You will watch others walk together, hands held, laughter loud, plans aligned. And you'll wonder why your feet feel like they are moving in a different direction. You'll try to merge, try to blend, try to walk their road. But your spirit will grow restless. Your peace will shatter. And deep down, you will know this isn't your way. Because your road is not wide. It is not paved. It is not glamorous. It is a wilderness path, one that breaks you before it builds you, and only those who are spiritually equipped can survive it. You cannot bring unaligned hands into covenant spaces. You cannot share sacred air with casual spirits. What is on your life is rare, and rare assignments require rare environments. So you walk, sometimes with tears, sometimes with trembling, sometimes with the weight of questions too heavy for the day. But you walk, not because it's easy, but because your soul knows staying still would be disobedience. You walk even when your heart is heavy. You walk even when your strength is thin. You walk not because you see the finish line, but because you trust the one who lit your path. And as you walk, you will lose things. People, comfort, familiarity. You'll try to hold on, try to explain your growth, try to soften your separation. But the road doesn't bend for nostalgia. The calling doesn't accommodate convenience. There comes a moment when you must choose between their approval and your assignment, between being liked and being aligned. And alignment always walks alone, at least for a season. But don't be fooled. There is glory in walking alone. There is revelation in the quiet. There is a clarity that only comes when there is no one else's shadow walking beside you. In the silence, you learn the sound of your own spirit. You hear the voice of God clearer. You begin to understand what it means to be sustained, not by applause, but by purpose. Because when you are chosen, the road becomes a mirror. It shows you yourself, not the version others see, but the raw, unfiltered, sacred self, the self who doubts, who hopes, who wrestles with faith, who questions the silence, who keeps moving anyway. You learn your rhythms. You discover your capacity. You realize that you are not fragile. You are being forged. There's something holy about walking alone, not because you prefer it, but because you have been appointed for it. You begin to see that the isolation wasn't rejection, it was insulation. It was the divine wrapping you in silence so that you wouldn't be contaminated by voices not assigned to your destiny. You were being set apart, not pushed aside. And yes, there are days when the silence feels too loud, when the path feels too long, when you wish for company, for conversation, for someone to just understand. But even in that longing, you are being purified. You are being taught the sacred art of leaning not on people, but on presence. Because the truth is, when you're chosen, even well-meaning people can become distractions. Even kind hearts can unknowingly delay you. Sometimes the journey requires a solitude so deep, even love must wait outside the gate. Not because you don't love them, but because this part of your walk is not for spectators. It is between you and the spirit that called you. That's why doors close. That's why the phone stops ringing. That's why the ones you thought would walk forever beside you slowly fade into memory. They weren't meant to go where you're going, and your heart, though bruised, must accept it. Some bonds were only bridges. Some connections were only lessons. Some hands were only meant to hold you for a chapter, not the whole book, and still you walk. You walk because the road may be narrow, but it is necessary. You walk because what's ahead cannot be delayed. You walk because you know now this is not punishment, this is preparation. You're being conditioned for a weight others will never have to carry. You're being taught how to walk without needing to be carried. You're being made into a storm walker, a light bearer, a soul who doesn't flinch when the winds rise. Because this path, though lonely, is building something in you that cannot be shaken. Others may inherit success, but you will inherit strength. And there will come a day when you look back and realize you never really walked alone. There was always something walking with you, within you, guiding you, holding you upright when your knees buckled, lifting your face when the tears blurred your way. That unseen hand, that eternal comfort, that divine presence that required your full attention. That's why others couldn't come. They would have distracted you from the one who was training you for destiny. This is why the chosen walk path's only wide enough for one. Because the sacred journey demands your full presence. Because there is something ahead with your name on it. And if anyone else tried to walk it with you, they'd step on what only you are meant to carry. So let them question. Let them misunderstand. Let them call it isolation, arrogance, or strange. Let them watch from their wide roads. You are not called to explain your walk. You are called to finish it. And when you do, when you reach the clearing after the wilderness, when the dust settles and your strength shines through the bruises, those who watched from afar will wonder how you made it, and you'll know. You made it because you walked roads meant only for one set of footprints. And you never stopped walking. There are places only silence can take you, depths of the soul that no conversation can reach, truths that will never surface in the noise of the crowd, but rise like incense in the quiet of being alone. And if you've ever found yourself in the thick of that silence, aching, wondering, asking why the room grew empty when your heart grew full, you're not cursed. You're not forgotten. You're being taught. Loneliness isn't a punishment. It's a curriculum, and the classroom has no windows, no applause, no affirming nods. It has only you, your breath, your questions, and the unseen hand of something holy pressing gently on your shoulder, saying, "Sit down. We have work to do." Because chosen ones don't just wake up wise. They don't just become grounded. They don't simply awaken. No, they are broken first, stripped, emptied, and placed in a silence that teaches them what no mentor ever could. That silence, that space of separation and self-discovery, that's where the roots grow. People think loneliness is the enemy, but for the chosen, it's the invitation. It's the divine saying, "Come away from their voices so you can finally hear mine." Come away from the noise, the opinions, the distractions, the dependence. Come away from needing to be understood and into the sanctuary of simply being. Come away. The world has taught us to fear being alone, as if it is the evidence of failure, as if solitude is a sign that something is wrong. But the sacred knows better. The sacred knows that before elevation comes isolation, before clarity comes the void, before birthing comes the pain of carrying something no one else can feel, and yes, it hurts. Yes, there are nights when the silence is so thick it feels like it's pressing down on your chest. Mornings when you reach for a hand that isn't there. Moments when you long to be seen, not by a crowd, but by just one soul who gets it. But still, no one comes. And that's when the teaching begins, because in that hunger to be known, you are taught how to know yourself. In that ache for connection, you are taught how to commune with your Creator. In that space of no one, you meet the only one who has never left you. This is the mystery of the classroom of loneliness. What feels like emptiness is actually the presence of the sacred, undistracted, unfiltered, unshared. You finally become quiet enough to hear what's been whispered to your spirit for years, but the noise kept drowning it out. There are things about yourself you will never learn in the presence of others. You won't find your voice while constantly listening to theirs. You won't discover your power while leaning on their strength. You won't develop vision while watching through their eyes. You have to sit in the silence and confront the parts of yourself you've been avoiding, the old wounds, the buried questions, the insecurities that you masked with smiles, the gifts you've been too afraid to claim, the truth of who you are beneath all the layers of who you've had to be. That truth waits for you in the quiet, and loneliness brings you to its door. But we resist it. We run, we scroll, we text, we call, we fill every moment so we don't have to feel the empty space. We fear the quiet because we fear what it might show us. But here's the truth. The silence will not break you. It will rebuild you. It will teach you how to breathe without permission. It will show you how to walk without applause. It will lead you into a strength that does not beg to be seen. And when you rise from that place, when the season of aloneness shifts, you won't come out the same. You'll speak with authority, not borrowed from books or borrowed from others, but grown in the garden of your own pain. You'll walk with grace that no one taught you because it was forged in the fire of your solitude. You'll stop chasing connection and start cultivating alignment. You'll no longer accept company that costs your peace or conversations that dilute your spirit, because you'll have learned loneliness doesn't mean you are unworthy of love. It means you are being prepared to recognize it when it's real. Loneliness doesn't mean you are unloved. It means you are being emptied of counterfeit affections so you can receive something true. Loneliness doesn't mean you are being punished. It means you are being positioned, corrected, refined, re-centered. Because your next season requires a version of you that can stand without needing to be held. And that version of you is only born in the classroom of being alone. You don't need to fear it. You don't need to fight it. You don't need to explain it to those who don't understand. Some won't get it. They'll think you're pulling away, becoming distant, cold. Let them wonder. You're not retreating, you're returning. Returning to your soul, returning to your knowing, returning to the still sacred truth at the center of your being. There's a kind of wisdom that doesn't come from conversation. There is a kind of healing that doesn't happen in public. There is a kind of alignment that requires you to walk through the valley of your own becoming with no one clapping, no one calling, no one cheering, just you and the voice that says, keep going. The chosen are not made on platforms, they are made in silence. And the loneliness you feel is not your end, it's your initiation. You are not empty, you are being cleared. You are not forgotten, you are being formed. You are not invisible, you are being instructed. And when the lesson is complete, you'll know. You'll walk into a room and no longer shrink. You'll hear the noise and no longer crave it. You'll see the crowd and no longer envy it. Because you'll have learned deep in your bones that your soul can feast in silence, that your spirit can sing even when no one is listening, that your joy is not dependent on proximity, but on peace, that your worth is not reflected in company, but in your calling. This is the gift the classroom gives you. It's quiet, it's lonely, but it is never without purpose. And when you graduate from that sacred space, you'll walk differently. Not because others changed, but because you did. There are people in this world whose presence feels like a sanctuary. You don't meet them, you encounter them. When they enter a space, it's not with noise, but with knowing. Not with flash, but with force. You don't always notice them at first, not because they are invisible, but because they don't need to be seen. Their energy speaks before their name is even mentioned. These are not ordinary souls. These are the chosen, the aware, the deeply awakened. They do not move fast. They do not speak just to fill silence. They do not scatter themselves like loose change, hoping to be picked up by whoever passes. Because their spirit is too expensive for casual company, you can feel the cost of who they are the moment they sit across from you, not in arrogance, not in superiority, but in presence, in depth, in discernment, in the way they look at you, not just at your face, but through your mask, in the way their silence challenges your noise, in the way their stillness reveals your need to impress. You see, a deeply spiritual person cannot be kept in shallow relationships. They can't breathe in small talk. They can't stretch in rooms where everything is performance and nothing is real. They weren't created to entertain. They were created to elevate. But that elevation comes with a price, and not everyone is willing to pay it. Because to walk beside someone like this, to truly hold space with them, requires more than charm. It requires capacity. It requires a level of self-awareness most people haven't built. It requires presence, honesty, reverence. It demands that you come clean or not come at all. Because anything false cannot survive in their energy. Their spirit will not allow it. This is why the chosen are often alone, not because they don't love people, but because they cannot be casual with what is sacred. Their time is sacred. Their peace is sacred. Their calling is sacred. And sacred things must be guarded, not given freely. They learned this the hard way. They've handed their heart to those who mishandled it. They've poured into others who only came to consume. They've shared deep truths with shallow spirits, only to be met with confusion or betrayal. And so now they protect their energy like a priest guards the altar. Not because they are closed, but because they've been cut. Not because they are bitter, but because they've finally become wise. There's a moment that every chosen one remembers, the moment they realized their light was being dimmed, not by enemies, but by people too casual with their presence. People who clapped when it was convenient, but disappeared when the soul work began. People who loved the gifts, but had no reverence for the giver, and when that moment came, they didn't explode. They exited, quietly, with grace, with tears maybe, but with a deep knowing that their spirit was never meant to be handled without care, because casual energy contaminates sacred space. And when you are walking in purpose, when your every breath is connected to something divine, when your soul is sensitive to the shift of seasons, you cannot afford to keep company with those who only come to be entertained. Your spirit requires resonance, reciprocity, rootedness, not flattery, not surface attention. You've outgrown relationships that feed your ego but starve your essence. You've learned that being alone with your spirit intact is better than being surrounded while your light is slowly dying. You've seen what happens when you keep the wrong people too close for too long. You begin to question your own depth. You start silencing your intuition to keep the peace. You shrink, not because you want to, but because their energy cannot hold the full expression of who you are becoming. And that's when you finally realize your spirit is not for rent. It is not to be loaned out to anyone who cannot carry it with honor. It is not a currency to be traded for likes, for claps, for companionship. Your spirit is home, and not everyone deserves a key. There is a strength in knowing your worth without needing to announce it. There is a power in walking away, not with anger, but with understanding. Understanding that some people were not rejecting you. They were revealing their capacity, and your calling was simply too heavy for them to lift. Let them go. You are not cold. You are clear. You are not distant. You are discerning. You are not guarded. You are graced. And the grace that covers your life cannot be explained to those who've never carried something sacred. They won't understand why you need silence, why you pull back, why you no longer force conversations that feel hollow, why you don't attend every gathering, why your smile is softer, but your boundaries are stronger. But you know that peace is expensive, and you paid too much to lose it now. You know that your gifts are not for display, but for destiny. You know that your presence is a privilege, not a favor. You know that your time is a seed, and only fertile ground deserves your planting. So you move differently, not with pride, but with purpose. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't perform, you don't entertain people who only show up when you're shining, but disappear when your soul needs shelter. You don't explain your value to those who treat you like an option. You don't waste your depth on conversations that never touch the truth. Because you've learned what's sacred must be stewarded, and you, beloved, are sacred. Your laugh, your tears, your truth, your silence, your insight, your energy, it all holds divine weight. And the people who are meant for you will feel that weight. They will not fear it. They will not exploit it. They will honor it. They will match it. They will rise to meet it. You will never have to convince aligned souls to cherish what you carry. So rest. Rest in the knowing that your sensitivity is not a flaw. It is a filter. It filters out the ones who want your light but cannot handle your fire. It filters out the ones who come with empty hands and entitled hearts. It filters out the ones who speak of loyalty but vanish when integrity is required, and it leaves you with the truth that fewer people doesn't mean less love, that solitude doesn't mean scarcity, that being selective is not selfish, it's spiritual stewardship. So let your spirit remain rare, let your soul stay sacred, let your presence be precious, because the right people will not treat you like a convenience. They will know the cost of your spirit, and they will pay it gladly. There are people who walk through life as if they are carrying something invisible but weighty. You can sense it in how they move, how they pause before speaking, how they say no with such quiet authority. They are not loud, but their presence is commanding. They are not flashy, but their presence lingers. They are not trying to be seen because they know they are being used. Not by the world, but by something higher. They are protectors of sacred assignments. They carry something holy inside them, a vision, a calling, a purpose not printed on business cards or shouted from rooftops, but written in their bones. You won't always see it at first glance. You might mistake them for quiet, withdrawn, too selective, or even standoffish. But what you are really witnessing is a soul under instruction. They are listening to directions the world cannot hear. They are aligned with orders that don't always make sense to the masses. Because when you're carrying something sacred, you don't move like everyone else. You don't share every thought. You don't chase every opportunity. You don't allow every hand to touch what is being formed within you. The assignment requires discretion. The instruction demands discipline. The purpose is too pure to be placed in careless hands. People may call it overprotective, but when you've been entrusted with divine work, you have to protect it. The enemy of sacred things is not always destruction. Sometimes it's exposure. Sometimes it's applause too early. Sometimes it's advice from unassigned mouths. Sometimes it's good people giving wrong counsel because they don't know what you're carrying. So you guard it. You guard the idea before it becomes visible. You guard the calling before it's celebrated. You guard the direction before the road is even clear. Not because you're afraid, but because you understand. Greatness grows in secret before it is ever seen in public. The womb is quiet before birth. The seed breaks underground before it blooms. The oil is pressed in silence before it heals nations. And so you protect it. You don't announce everything. You don't seek confirmation from the crowd. You don't need 10 opinions before you obey the whisper. You've learned that what is sacred cannot be shared carelessly. Some dreams die not because they weren't divine, but because they were spoken too soon, shared too wide, or handled by someone who didn't recognize their weight. You've seen it. You've seen how jealousy can hide behind smiles. You've seen how manipulation can cloak itself in concern. You've seen how proximity doesn't always equal safety. So now you carry your assignment like a sacred scroll, folded, sealed, and hidden close to your heart, not out of fear, but out of reverence. Reverence for the timing, reverence for the giver, reverence for the people who will one day benefit from what you're birthing, because it's not just about you. That's what makes it sacred. Sacred assignments always reach beyond the self. They're bigger than one name, one moment, one stage. They are the kind of callings that echo into generations, the kind that heal bloodlines, awaken sleeping souls, and alter the atmosphere of every room they touch. And to carry that kind of power, you must walk with integrity. You must speak with caution. You must live with intention. You must move differently, because sacred doesn't mix with sloppy. Sacred doesn't move with desperation. Sacred doesn't settle for just being liked. Sacred requires maturity, patience, wisdom, and sometimes heartbreak, because the path of the protector is not easy. There will be moments when the loneliness feels unbearable, moments when you wonder if you heard wrong, moments when the waiting stretches so long you start to doubt if the assignment still exists. You'll watch others run ahead, broadcast their every move, gather applause, win fast, and you'll feel the tension of stillness, the ache of restraint. But that restraint, that quiet obedience, that invisible labor, it's preserving your oil, it's shaping your voice, it's strengthening your foundation, because when the time comes, when the moment is right and the world is ready, what you carry will not come as a whisper, it will come as a shift. And everyone who once overlooked you will see why you had to be so careful, so quiet, so withdrawn, so protective. They'll see why you didn't go to every event, why you didn't jump at every opportunity, why you left some circles and outgrew certain conversations. They'll understand you weren't hiding, you were honoring. You were honoring the weight of what was placed inside you. You were honoring the silence that allowed your gift to mature. You were honoring the instructions that made no sense to anyone else. And when it's finally released, when the vision becomes visible, people will call it power. They'll call it wisdom. They'll call it grace. But you'll know the truth. You'll know it was born of discipline, born of consecration, born of pain, born of late nights wrestling with doubt, early mornings filled with prayer, and ordinary days saturated in obedience. You'll know the price, and that's why you'll never handle anyone else's sacred work with casual hands. You'll recognize the weight in others. You'll protect them the way you had to protect yourself. You'll become a safe space for visionaries, prophets, dreamers, healers, because once you've protected your own assignment, you instinctively guard what is divine in others. You'll speak less, but your presence will say more. You'll advise carefully because you know how fragile sacred things are in early stages. You'll listen deeply because you understand how few places truly hear the soul. You'll lead gently because you've lived the ache of carrying something heavy with no one to help. And this is the hidden blessing of the protector's path. You are not just birthing purpose. You are becoming a midwife to purpose in others because you didn't just survive the weight, you honored it. You didn't just keep the assignment, you kept it sacred. And now the world will taste the fruit of what you protected in private. Not everyone will understand your journey, but those who carry sacred work will recognize you. They will feel safe with you. They will find rest in your presence, and they will know this one is different. This one doesn't just shine, they steward. This one doesn't just speak, they listen. This one doesn't just dream, they protect. Because some are called to carry, and others are called to guard what carries us all. You are the latter. You are a protector of sacred assignments. There are seasons in life that do not make sense while you're in them. Seasons when the phone barely rings, when the doors remain closed, when the spotlight drifts elsewhere. You sit in silence, surrounded by your own thoughts, wondering if life has forgotten you, if heaven misplaced your name on the list. You wonder why the opportunities dry up, why people drift away, why even your energy feels buried beneath the weight of delay. And yet, beneath it all, something within whispers. You are not being punished. You are being prepared, because what is coming requires the strongest version of you. You are being fortified, stretched, chiseled, refined, not because you failed, but because the next chapter demands more of you than you've ever had to give. Not more performance, but more presence. Not more hustle, but more healing. Not more grind, but more groundedness. You are being built into someone who won't collapse under the weight of what's coming, because the future you're headed toward doesn't need your potential. It needs your capacity. Potential is a spark, but capacity is a container. Potential is promise, but capacity is readiness. And right now, your life is being carved into a deeper vessel, so it can hold the magnitude of what's next. Every delay, every detour, every lonely night, it's chiseling you. Not breaking you, but shaping you. You've been praying for the promise, but God's been building your spine. You've been asking for expansion, but heaven's been preparing your endurance. You've been begging for the next level, but the next level requires a different version of you. The one that isn't swayed by noise, that doesn't leak energy through people-pleasing, that no longer trades discernment for approval. You're becoming unshakable, the kind of person who can walk through fire and come out carrying wisdom instead of smoke. The kind of person who doesn't just survive storms, but understands them, who learns to dance in the rain, not because it's poetic, but because it's preparation. You're being seasoned in solitude so that when the platform comes, you don't crumble under its pressure. You're being strengthened in silence so that when the world listens, you speak from wholeness. This process isn't punishment, it's preservation. You are being pulled away from certain people, not because they're bad, but because they can't come where you're going. They fed your comfort, not your calling. They catered to your past, not your potential. And so they had to be released, not with resentment, but with reverence. Because when destiny calls, distractions must fall. This is the sacred severing, the holy shedding. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's confusing. Yes, it feels personal, but it's purposeful. Some connections are meant to be temporary so your roots can go deeper without being disturbed. You don't grow tall by stretching upward alone. You grow by sinking deeper first. And right now, that's what you're doing, going deep. Into discipline, into healing, into clarity, because superficial strength won't sustain sacred assignments. Half-hearted commitment won't uphold the magnitude of your mission. You've got to be full of vision, full of discernment, full of alignment, and not just on stage, but in secret, in the quiet hours when no one is watching, when no applause is offered, when no spotlight shines. That's where true capacity is built. And that building, it's sacred. You're being taught to trust your inner knowing, to hear the whisper behind the noise, to rely not on reaction,